All right, Tuesday night, Raj is in the house. It's the Krug Show, brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. We're talking Niners. We got a bunch of topics. Let's go. All right, welcome to the Krug Show. Tuesday night, Raj is in the house from RSF 49ers, as he is always on Tuesday nights, and we are brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. And I always say that, but they do run out. It's a real barbecue spot, and they do run out. So don't roll in the last 15 minutes and thinking you're going to get your pick of the litter. You're probably not. You're probably not at that point. But we are brought to you by Pig and a Pickle. Check them out. I saw a guy sent me a picture yesterday, Raj, of a crew. He's two people. He's got a Krug Show shirt. The other guy's got a Pig and a Pickle shirt, and they're in Disneyland. they're walking down Main Street in Disneyland.
That's
and
good.
so I sent it to Damon, the owner of Pig and a Pickle, and he's like, nice. And, of course, we're brought to you as well by BetUS. With BetUS, you get the fastest payouts in the industry and easy withdrawals, live wagering on all major games. Plus, you get 10% back on your net losses twice a year. On top of that, you get your own personal account manager. So what do? You head over to betus.com today. Use that promo code YouTube150, and you'll get a 150% sign-up bonus on your first deposit and 125% sign-up bonus on your next two deposits up to $2,000. Again, sign up at betus.com. Use that code YouTube150 to claim your offer. And last but certainly not least, we're brought to you by Sharp Corner Sports Cards and Collectibles, 205 Cypress Avenue in Pacific Grove, California, on the Monterey Peninsula. If you need cards or collectibles, call Anthony Catania. He's at 831-521-5264. And we thank all of them for being proud sponsors of the Krug Show. All right, Raj is in the house. As I said, we got a lot to get to. One of the things that caught my eye today was Matt Bowen, who's one of my favorite guys from ESPN. He's on the show with Greg Cosell, the Matchup Show. He's really smart, former Iowa safety, really good football player in his day, and now a phenomenal. If you like guys who crunch film and really tell you about the game within the game, you'd love Matt Bowen. Anyway, he was on ESPN, and he had an article out about landing spots for certain free agents and where's the best landing spot for who, so on and so forth. And they've got Chargers cornerback Asante Samuel, whose dad played with the Patriots. You remember by the same name, Asante Samuel. His dad was born in Ghana and raised Asante Jr. in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And then Asante went on and was great in high school, and then was I think a 4 or 5 star recruit, went to Florida State, drafted by the Chargers in the second round in 2021, and he's just been one of the NFL's better corners. He's not big. He's 5'10", 180, 4.41 speed. He only played 4 games this year because of a shoulder injury, so he was coming off of a year where he didn't play a whole lot. But what would you think of that, Raj? We really have thought about, defensive linemen and edge rushers and offensive linemen and receivers, but the Niners haven't necessarily been tied to too many corners in free agency. But I'll tell you, man, if they could land a guy like Asante Samuel, I think that would be amazing. You'd have, I don't think it's possible, but you'd have Samuel and Renardo Green, and obviously Demo Lenore. I mean, that's a outstanding young trio. What do you think about the possibility of pursuing Asante Samuel Jr. in free agency?
Yeah, I actually love this opportunity. Now, I posted about this today. Actually, the news came out today, and before this news, kind of surfaced, there was a small report somewhere out there that says that Asante Samuel did want to try to re-sign with the Chargers. Obviously, the team that drafted him.
Sure.
The Niners had a chance to draft this guy, and I remember banging the table, go draft Asante Samuel. He's got the talent. He's got the skill. So if they get a second chance to get Asante Samuel, I hope they don't screw it this time because I love this guy. I know he had the injuries, but he's a very young, solid cornerback, and you can throw him in at the nickel corner spot. You can, really move him around, and then you'd have a nasty trio with Renardo Green, the guy I think is going to break out this year, Deebo Samuel, who got his contract, and Asante Samuel, a playmaker. This guy has a nose for the ball. Would absolutely love it. But again, there's going to be competition between the Chargers and the Niners. I'm sure Harbaugh loves this guy, and he's going to want to bring him back. So won't be easy to keep him on there, but I think they can add him, and he's a younger option. I know Charvarius Ward's most likely going to be gone this offseason from the 49ers in free agency. So, oh, man, I would love it. I would be ecstatic if they can get Asante Samuel. And now I know everybody wants him to fix the D-line and fix the O-line. Those are still viable options and things they're going to do, but they still bolster their secondary because they definitely need to make sure they have the best secondary that they can possibly get. And if you're losing Charvarius Ward, this makes a ton of sense. Now, the other guy that's out there that's been kind of rumored, kind of linked to the Niners would be DJ Reed. So then you have to kind of weigh your options. Do you want DJ Reed or do you want Asante Samuel? I would be fine with either one of them. I do like Samuel because he's a little younger. He's got the upside, but I mean, you can't go mad. You can't be mad with either one of those two options.
You know, it is kind of an interesting thing. It's like, okay, if you have a player that you're familiar with and you know fits your scheme and you know fits your locker room and your culture, right? In that case, I'm okay. And you're in that Super Bowl window, let's say. Then I'm okay going for the older free agent. But I think if, that aside, if you're not in that window, I really think that, it's really smarter to go after the 25, 26-year-old free agent than the 32, 33-year-old free agent because the prime of an NFL player's career is between those ages. That's the prime. I mean, if you're 32, you've played your best ball, most likely. I mean, it's only the rarest of rare quarterback, maybe didn't play well in his 20s. Rich Gannon, like, for example, could maybe played better after 32 than he did before 32. Maybe Steve Young. Great example, Steve Young. He was 31 when he busted out with the Niners, okay? So he was better in his 30s than he was in his 20s, but that's not norm for the other positions outside of quarterback. The rest of the positions, it's such a physical game that the 25-year-old is typically better than that same player at age 32. So I just think that and the free agent market in the NFL is filled with both, right? There's a bunch of 25, 26-year-olds, and then there's a bunch of 32, 33-year-olds and guys in between. So I actually believe really strongly in building through the draft. Because I think your culture does matter. I also think that when you go for older guys that have been in other locker rooms for a lot of years, then you get Devondre Campbell. You get this, well, you know what? Yeah, this is their culture, but my culture is I stay on the exercise bike for the first half hour and then I jog out to practice, in the middle of it. Well, guess what? That nobody else does that except for you. And it stuck out like a sore thumb as he did that. And that wasn't the issue primarily with him this year, but overall, he's just an older player who, the Niners when I asked people about him this spring and this summer, it was like, oh yeah, we really liked him in the draft. Okay, that was years ago. Yeah. He's not the same player that he was in the draft. Has anybody watched Green Bay film to see that this player's regressed significantly? I mean, anybody? No, they signed him. And think about it. They kissed off on Samuel Womack. They brought in 31-year-old Isaac Yiadom. They got rid of they let Azeez Al-Shaair walk, and they lost Jalen Graham, and then they got him back. But I mean they bring in an older linebacker. To me, it's like I'm really anti-free agency. Period. Yeah. But because I think. I just don't believe in it. I really believe you build in the draft. I mean, free agency didn't even exist until 1994. And I just don't think you can buy yourself a title. I think the best way to handle free agency is what Green Bay did last year, where they didn't sign 20 guys like Washington did, though Washington had a great offseason, but still they signed a ton of free agents. You're taking a kind of a roll of the dice with your locker room at that point. Green Bay said, you know what? We got a good young team built through the draft. We'll handpick Xavier McKinney and Josh Jacobs. And then, they took two really good players. Xavier McKinney was among their best defensive players this year. Josh Jacobs was clearly one of their best offensive players. I like that when you can go get one or two elite guys. I think that's the route. This year, or last year, the Niners didn't do this, but they had been in that mode, Raj, of
Mhm.
Mooney Ward, Hargrave, and to me, I know it didn't necessarily work out great with Hargrave, but I think your chemistry is better when you only bring in top tier free agents, because I think every guy in the room can just sit there and go, well, why am I not getting paid? And I think it really kills your chemistry unless you get top free agents that the players really can't question. And that's why it worked, because Mooney was, the Niners didn't have a corner better than Mooney. They probably didn't have a more accomplished defensive tackle than Hargrave. So nobody's really bitching or complaining. But if you bring in a bunch of guys that are all kind of similar, and you pay free agents and you don't pay, let's say, some of your young veterans yet, you got guys going, wait, I've been here for 4 years and you don't want to take care of me, but this guy did the same thing for the Arizona Cardinals and now he's making more than me. I think that's where your locker room starts to fracture. So
Yeah.
I like the idea of building through the draft, but if you're going to sign a free agent, go the young route, get somebody who's 2 years in the system, who has time to learn your system and learn your culture and blend with your talent. That's how I kind of feel about it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think if you're going to get a free agent, you want to have a guy that's going to make an impact, a splash, a little bit on the younger side because, you don't want to go and get these older veteran guys. Sometimes it's nice to have veterans in the clubhouse for depth purposes and, mentorship. But if you're relying on a lot of old guys, your roster's not probably going to be the greatest. Now, Washington, they went and bolstered that free agency, bolstered the roster through free agency. Adam Peters came in and he did an overhaul, but the roster was bad. So they knew they needed to get some free agents because they have to also make it a destination where their fans can go and enjoy a game because that team was bad. But they also hit in the draft. They got the best quarterback in the draft. So they did a blend. They nailed it in the draft. Adam Peters cooked it there. He did good in free agency. So I feel like you need to have both. You do need to get some free agents. Like you said, with the Packers, they went and grabbed a few studs, added them to the roster. Then they built through the draft. The Rams, they've done it where they've done both. They've went out and bought everybody they could, like the Yankees, and then they went out and they said, F the free agency, and we're going to go build our team through the draft because we just lost Aaron Donald. So it really depends on what you're good at. And I feel like the 49ers are good at getting late round picks. They've developed draft picks, but it's been risky in the first round. So it's like, maybe they do need to go get free agents. But I feel like if you just load your team up with like mid-tier free agents, your team's going to be mid-tier. So I do want to see the 49ers get a few free agents, maybe two, maybe a center, maybe a DJ Jones type guy, maybe like that, maybe a cornerback, because there are some really good corners out there, as we've mentioned here, DJ Reed, Asante Samuel. Now, the only problem that comes with signing these younger players, if they've been pretty good, they're going to be expensive because they're going for a big bag, right? Asante Samuel, this is his first contract extension. I expect him to be a little bit more than DJ Reed because he's had an extension before. So that's where you have to kind of look and see what fits in your plan, because you got to sign your guys. Like you said, you want to reward your guys. Brock Purdy is the guy the Niners got to reward. So there's a lot of logistics that go into it. But ultimately, yeah, you have to really develop through the draft ultimately. But when it comes to signing them again, I hope you can pay them, because that's not always the case. We saw what the 49ers did with DJ Jones. They had this guy. When it was time to pay him, I couldn't afford him. So it's a blessing and a curse to have a good draft pick. If you can't afford him, it's definitely not good. But I'm excited. I think they will get at least one or two good premium free agents. We're going to lose a lot of players this year. And I think the one guy everybody wants the 49ers to get back is probably Dre Greenlaw. I think if they could get Dre Greenlaw, sign two solid free agents like DJ Jones and maybe the Atlanta Falcons center, I think everybody would be happy going into the draft.
No, I think you're spot on. And DJ Jones, it would be a great addition. Why? Because you already know he fits. You already know what he's like. You already know what he's about. So, I mean, that's a big part of it. It's like, not every team in the NFL has the same culture, and you have to know who you're bringing in. So you've already had DJ Reed. You've already had DJ Jones. And if you bring those guys in, I think there's an expectation that they would fit in. All right, we're going to talk only about guys named Samuel in this live stream. So we go from Asante Samuel to Deebo Samuel. I'm joking about that, but Matt Mayoko, who NBC Sports Bay Area Niner reporter, went on Cambiar today and just doubled down on his report that Deebo is going to play elsewhere. this upcoming year, which I think we all knew. Deebo asked for a trade in January. The Niners granted him and his agent permission to find a trade. And so his 6-year run with the team's coming to an end. He's not the player that he was. And it's funny because some of the more casual Niner fans are like, oh my God, you can't get rid of Deebo. Don't trade him in the division. Whatever you do, don't trade him in conference. You better get at least a 3rd-round pick And it's like, dude, you want to tell me that you're not watching Niner football without telling me you're not watching Niner football? Just start singing the praises of Deebo Samuel, because if you watched it last year, this guy was a shell of what he used to be. He was great against Miami when he was, trying to audition for Mike McDaniel. Other than that, he was a tire fire, man. He really 2.5 yards a carry as a runner, nothing as a runner. His end arounds used to go for like 15 to 20 yards. They're going for like 2 yards or -2 yards. So he can't run. I don't know if it's the Niners O-line, if it's Shanahan's play calling, or if it's Deebo's lost his ability speed-wise to turn the corner. I don't know. But they're shopping him, and I don't know. It will be interesting to see what he gets. Matt Maiocco went on KNBR today and offered up a few more thoughts on it. And he said, here's the quote. He's talking about Deebo not being happy with the Niners. He says, and he's a guy with an ego, and probably to see his numbers go down, especially in the run game. I mean, he was always around 6 yards per carry. Last year, he was at 3.2 a carry. So, yeah, statistically, he didn't have a good year. He finished the year with 806 scrimmage yards and 4 total touchdowns. The same number, by the way, as Ricky Pearsall in like 5 less games. And Maiocco said it was probably a blow to his ego when, after he signs his big money deal, Brandon Ayuk becomes, in essence, the number 1 receiver, the guy who's catching more passes, catching more touchdowns, getting more yards receiving. And then even with Brandon Ayuk out of the picture, he was still the next guy with seeing Juwan Jennings producing. So, he also pointed out that Deebo's public perception has shifted. He says to see how things just came crashing down from a public perception standpoint. I don't know where it started, whether it was the outburst on the sidelines against Tampa, whether it was just the lowering production numbers, or him going on social media and saying he needs more opportunities. But, man, when things soured, they soured in a hurry. And Maiocco believes, I guess, that Deebo's aware of the shift in perception and maybe struggling with it. And he went on to say, and I think Deebo's a sensitive guy, and he's on social media probably far more than he should be, so he sees that. And you just kind of see how everything just kind of went downhill to a point where I think he believes that the grass is going to be greener, that maybe he needs a fresh start. So you can go to KNBR.com and listen to Maiocco's interview with Adam Copeland this afternoon. But that's a lot of, I don't disagree with any of that. I really don't. I think he is a sensitive guy. I think he does live on social media. I think he does want to clap back at the people that are saying he's fat. I don't know if he's 20 pounds overweight, and I don't really care about his weight in the offseason. I really don't. This guy has at times has put on weight and carried too much in the season, but there's been, he's been in good shape, is probably a lot more than he's been out of shape, in my opinion. But what do you think? I mean, the Deebo thing. Do you think Matty's right? Do you think, that maybe he read too much of the social media? Maybe he thinks it's going to be great somewhere else. I wouldn't be surprised, Raj, if he had a big individual year. I just don't think he's going to have more than one. I think he's going to have, if he gets super motivated and signs with a good Ravens team or whatever and gets behind a great offensive line, I think he could have one really productive year and help whatever team he's on maybe win the Super Bowl. But it's going to be 1 year, and then it's going to be, he's going to fall off the table, and whoever's paying him is going to be wishing they weren't. That's my thought on it. Where are you with Deebo?
Yeah, no, 100%. I agree with what Matt said and a lot of what you said in terms of he's very sensitive. He wears his emotions on his sleeve. He went out and choked out Tabor Pepper. That's the biggest emotional crash out we've seen. I mean, you could tell he's an emotional guy. His social media, I'm on his social media right now on his Instagram, and every day he's been posting these like quotes, these motivational quotes. Today he's like, I'm gonna keep a player, but everything noted. And he's like, I swear to God, your comfort zone will kill you. So he's posting things to kind of like say, like, look, I hear all the noise. And then the other day when that 20-pound report came out. He says, keep that same energy. Y'all making everything up. You know, he sees it. And instead of just letting it go, he internalizes it. So I do think, obviously the writing's on the wall. He's going to be gone. But I think he needs a fresh start somewhere. And I think it'll push him. It'll motivate him. He'll be around a new team. And everybody's going to be like, oh, that's Deebo. Because he does have a good, relationship with players around the league. I think players think highly of him. It's like, oh, that's Deebo. Like, he's cool with a lot of players. So I think wherever he goes, he'll be like the cool guy on campus. Like, oh, Deebo's here. Let's see. He's got that swag. He's got that aura. I mean, I think it's kind of worn out in Ninerland. Fans have kind of turned on him, like you said. So I feel like it's best for both parties to part ways. The Niners tried to get him involved heavily when he wanted the ball, and it just didn't work out. And I think wherever he goes, he's going to be motivated to prove himself for a year, at least a year, because he's going to want to get money. He's going to want to get a big contract, and he's going to have to prove himself. So I feel like, yeah, wherever he goes, he'll try his best. And then after that, it'll just kind of fall apart because his game is very physical and he takes hits and, it leads to injury. So I think that's part of it. But I feel like he's kind of shied away from that game over the last year. So the injuries have kind of mounted up, and I don't see him turning it up and running upfield like he used to, like just trying to take the hits and absorb all that. I feel like he doesn't do that anymore. And I think it was a huge blow to his ego when he saw Brandon Ayuk get that money, no matter what you want to say, even though it's his friend. And I know he posted a lot like, oh, that's my brother, that's my guy. And he was hyping. You could tell, like, in the back of his mind, he was probably like, I used to be that guy. Now I'm second fiddle. So I think internally he does kind of have those, thoughts. And for whatever it is, he had a great 2021 season. He was amazing, but it caught up to him, and he's not the same. I think wherever he goes, he'll be, trying to put his best foot forward, but he needs a fresh start wherever it is. And the Niners just need to cleanse it and move on. So I think the relationship is fractured.
No doubt, no doubt. And you know what? I bet you he's gonna be motivated. I bet you he shows up in shape, and I bet you he has a good year.
I mean,
But it's gonna be for somebody else.
Yeah, he came into shape last year, and then, I mean, he did get pneumonia. He did have all these issues. So you can't say he didn't have issues. But when you're a captain and you're calling out players, or you're choking out Tabor Pepper, which I defended, by the way, when you're doing all that, and then you're sitting there.
That's right. I think we might have battled on that one.
That was a hell of an episode. Now, when you're on the media and they're asking you, are you struggling? And you sit there and you tell them straight to the camera, and he says, I'm not struggling. I just need more opportunities. When you say that, and then you go out there and they force feed you the ball, like you're force feeding them cheeseburgers down your gullet, and you can't catch the ball, Larry, something's the matter.
Yeah.
You fell off. That's it. It's all right. I'm sorry. I love Deebo, but
no, when they force feed you the ball and you can't make plays, it's time to look down at the watch and remind yourself it's time to go. It's time to go. Christine Workman says, hey, Raj. Hey, Larry. Hey, what's up, Christine? We got this one from Mike Glennon, Hall of Fame. He says, Larry, can you have this guy on instead of Grant? I could actually have them both on. How about that? Yeah. And I do. How about that? Grant goes on Mondays and Raj is on Tuesdays. You just got to remember, Grant, I'm a very loyal person. Okay. Yeah. I don't gather friends and dump them. I don't gather. I just don't. I've been married to the same woman for 25 years. All my high school friends are still my friends. All my college friends are still my friends. Some people like go with like a whole new band of people all the time, right? They're constantly recycling people. I don't do that. It's like, if I'm your friend, I am your friend. I am going to be your friend till the end. So I'm just very loyal, and Grant really helped me, and I'm going to be loyal to Grant. And I know people don't like that because Grant has hot takes and he gets people fired up. But just remember, I mean, it's a show. It's a show. Don't forget, it's a show. Somebody in the chat asked before about that hat, Raj, and it is pretty tight, as the kids would say. Is that an orange bill or is that a red bill? It looks kind of
red. It's red.
It's red.
The lighting makes it look orange. It's red. What's my boy side? So it's got it's pretty cool. My hair's a mess, but you got the city car. The city cable car. It's pretty sweet. And the bottom, it's got this like
autographs.
No. Look at the design. Look at this crazy design. The inside is satin, so it protects your pretty hair. Although mine's, so I'm wearing the hat. But it's got all this design. This guy, Daniel Liu, makes the hats. He's a big time designer. He's got his own shop here out in the mall out here. He's got
Yeah,
a couple
shout
of
him out.
things.
That's a
Yeah, my
sweet
boy
lid.
Daniel Liu. He's on Instagram, but we're gonna work together this season. So a lot of content you'll see about these hats. But yeah, Daniel Liu, he's on Instagram. He's got some shops. It's a dope hat. He makes tons of hats. Like the designs are crazy, and he only makes like a specific amount because he doesn't want to like oversaturate. So it's like every hat is basically a collector's hat. So we're gonna do something next year at the tailgates, and you'll see. So we're gonna design a hat of the week for the fan of the week and the tailgater of the week. We got a lot of stuff popping for next year, but
I know I love the tailgate, by the way. I love walking through the parking lot and talking to the fans and, people, hey, Krug, drink this shot of Patron. Okay, why not? Krug, have this hamburger with all the fixins on it. All right. I'm like, sure. I love Niner fans, man. Especially in the pregame. I just love the scene, man. These people, they're all about the team, but they're all about each other. It's an amazing, amazing community of people. I walked by. Now, I got to ask you, Raj, where are you in the pregame? Where do you tailgate? Do you tailgate the mid lot, because the big lot, I should say, or one of the side lots? Because I've walked through the lot diagonally from the media top right to like the Hilton where I used to do the 95.7 The Game pregame show. And I would always walk by. There's just somebody would put down a floor, and this old guy with like an army jacket, I mean, literally like in his 80s, was breakdancing. Have you seen that guy? You know that guy?
He hangs out with us. So he's like does like the pop and lock and stuff. So he's usually there with the 408 swag guys. He's in that corner. So that's like blue lot. That's like where the OGs are at. And then if you go to green lot, there's a whole other people. So I know everybody in those tailgates because my friend Ken that does the 49er tailgate, he's the one that like goes throughout. He gets content. We do videos. So that's how I get a lot of my sponsors is through the tailgates, and all their brands help sponsor us. So like Bump Box, Gold Bar Whiskey, all these people, they have different spots out there. And you're right. They'll be like, "Oh, Raj, come here." And they'll take a video of me, picture. And of course, because I have such a big following, we'll post it. It'll go viral. And they'll give me food. Oh, you got to eat this. And then this one lady who's part of, can't remember what group she's with. She's always like worried. She's like, "You got to eat." So she'll just like shove food down my throat, and then they'll pull me over here. And yeah, I've seen that guy though. He's pretty cool. We did a breakdance battle with him. I think it was last year. So they pulled him, a couple other guys, and of course me, and we did like a battle. It was fun.
Can you breakdance?
Yeah, I could breakdance.
Can you do a little something? Can you do a little ditty for us on the live stream? Can you? Is there?
I can't do
I don't want you to. I don't want you to face plant. There's always the fat guy who face plants at the end. Remember back in high school, the guys who could do it would do it, and then there'd be like one fat guy, and he would just face plant. He'd just be like, boom, and land on the cardboard.
If next time we'll set it up where I have.
Can you? I
can do some pop lock and stuff,
but
mainly more footwork. I used to do like, I used to
moonwalk. You're a Michael Jackson moonwalk?
Moonwalk. I could do, some flares and some footwork here and there. I used to be able to do like the crab walk and all these things. And
did you ever see the guy walking out of jail with a cop standing there, and he does the Michael Jackson criminal, whatever. What's the
Smooth Criminal?
Smooth Criminal. And he's doing the breakdancing. He's walking out in an all pink suit. Do you ever see that on IG?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I mean, that guy's awesome. So okay. So we gotta hit the pregame together next year. We just do it up big and what is your, let me ask you this before we move off this, and this is a meaningless topic, and some of you are mad because I'm in a meaningless topic, but it's a meaningless topic. What can I say? What's your favorite time of year for the tailgate? Like if you could put yourself in a Niner tailgate, do you picture it playoff time? Do you picture nighttime, it's like a going into a night game? Do you like, I kind of like the tailgates in September when it's smoking hot. There's something about the tailgates when it's super hot like that. People are drinking, people are, they're having a good old time. It's 95 degrees in Santa Clara. I mean, I don't know. To me, I like the beginning of the year when it's super hot in the tailgate.
Those are fun because everybody's hyped up. It's the beginning of the season. It's like a lot of energy. Yeah. But personally, I love the playoff tailgates because it's just electric. Everybody's hyped up, out of their mind. The vibes are like, oh my God. And people are so like, they just want to give you everything. And you're so hyped up to see the playoffs. So I feel like that's my favorite part. and it's a little colder, so people got so much good food, the chili and this and that, and they barbecue food. The food warms you up out there. So I like the playoff time. It's fun, and everybody's got their dope jackets, man. Like they all try to dress to the nines out there.
Oh,
So.
dude, I love Niner fans in the pregame. It's so fun. All right, let's talk about the news of the day. Probably the biggest news of the day was the Niners released Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles. Now, he was set to be a free agent, so he was only going to be a Niner for a few more weeks. But this move, is this done? I guess I would need somebody who knows a little bit more about the cap. Maybe I should have called Lombardi this afternoon and asked him, or somebody who knows cap. But is this about, in your mind, hey, let's give DFF a chance to find a new home before free agency? Are they doing a good deed for DFF, or are they moving him off for some kind of cap reason? Why would they release a player who's set to be a free agent on March the 12th? Explain that.
Well, I think it was a little procedural, right? He had the cap injury, and I'm sure there's a little cap relief. I mean, he wasn't signed to this massive contract, but I think it's more of a respect. Hey, you've been on our team for a long time. You've been a special teams ace. He has over 1,200 snaps at special teams. So I feel like, here, we're going to put you on the market. Go test it. If you can find someone to sign you, cool, man. We'd love it for you. But if not, we want you back. I feel like he's a guy that the Niners would try to retain him because of the special teams services he's provided. He's a depth guy. But now you have Robert Salah back, and you have Brant Boyer, the new special teams coordinator. So I feel like this could have been a move that was perpetuated by the new special teams coordinator. Say, hey, look, I got certain guys I need to bring in on this roster. We love you, DFF, but hey, go check the market and see what you can find. We'll welcome you back. But I think that's more of what it is, hey, you're a free agent now. You're free to go sign with whatever team you want. I really don't think it was a big cap saving move. I mean, he wasn't signed to a massive contract. So I feel like that's where it is. And again, you have a new special teams coordinator. He's probably going to bring in some of his own guys. And to me, I don't think losing DFF was like the biggest. Oh my God, man! I didn't even like these guys first.
I mean, he's a good dude. I mean, he was a good dude to talk to. Yeah. But I mean, dime a dozen. I mean, you can find DFF in this draft on day 3 or after the draft and upgrade from DFF at a cheaper cost with a guy who can play from scrimmage, not just special teams. So Law of Awe says we need the roster spot for new guys. It's time for DFF to go. Appreciate what he's done, but we need new blood in the draft and free agency. I totally agree with Law of Awe. It just, sometimes it's just time to go, and I think it is interesting. I'm sure the Niners have a concrete reason of why they want to do it right now, and I don't know what it is. But I will say this. The other interesting angle on this position group is that over the weekend, I'm reading a Mayoko thing where he's referencing Nick Bosa saying to Jennifer Lee-Chan that in a conversation that Nick had with Robert Saleh, that Saleh is, quote unquote, adamant about re-signing Dre Greenlaw. Now, makes me love Robert Saleh, and it makes me understand that he's a smart guy. The Niners need to re-sign Dre Greenlaw. Now, if he gets a 4-year deal for $32 million, then I'll be the first guy to drive him to the airport. All right? But if he's going to get what Jimmy Ward got, was like 1 year and $6.5 million, or 1 year and $7 million, or 1 year and $8 million, then bring him back. Why? Because this guy means everything to their violence, to their physicality, to their culture. Plus, I want to draft 2 young inside linebackers who are the future at this position, and I want Greenlaw and Warner to pass down what they know to those guys. So I want Greenlaw on the team. Now, I'm not crazy. If he gets a 3-year, $24 million offer, he's got to go. He gets a 4-year, $32 million offer. Sorry, Dre, time, we're going to miss you. But if he's going to sign a 1 or a 2-year deal for $6, $7, or $8 million, he better be coming back. And I know Lynch wants him back. I know the Niners want him back. But to hear Saleh say that he's adamant about that, and I think Saleh has some leverage because he, what do you think Brant Boyer's about? That's all Robert Saleh's leverage. You think the Niners it's a coincidence that they signed the Jets special teams coach? No, Saleh said this guy's good, he's coming, and so he leveraged it. And if he can leverage the Niners to re-sign Dre Greenlaw, it's going to make me love Robert Saleh that much more. I think he's super smart to do it because I think he understands that this guy's more than just the tackles and stats, and this guy means more than the stats.
Yeah, he's the
And
heart
if
and
you don't
soul.
understand that, then maybe you don't understand Niner ball.
I agree. He's like the heart of this defense. You could tell.
Totally.
He's the emotional leader. When Fred Warner had his his boy, he was done in the Super Bowl. When Greenlaw went down, the amount of emotion Fred Warner had was like, oh wow. And when Greenlaw came back, the two in the
He was
tunnel,
crying.
You could just tell what Dre Greenlaw means to his team, and I think all fans want him back. But I think the one thing, and I've said this, and people didn't like this take, is he does have a big injury risk, so you can't pay him a lot of money. So you're absolutely right, Larry.
If you can't pay him a lot of years for sure.
Yeah, you can't give him a lot of years. And no. Last year, the 49ers, what they did was they did a lot of 2-year contracts. They typically did 1-year type prove-it deals. But I remember Lynch saying, like, we've kind of shifted. We want to keep guys for at least 2 years. If we're going to bring in a guy for free agency, we don't want to just do one because then he's going to hit the market again. And if we want to bring him back, it's going to be too expensive. So I feel like that 2-year contract's the sweet spot, but it really depends on how much Dre Greenlaw is going to command on the market. Because you're right. If a team's like, trying to rebuild and they're like, oh, well, we want Greenlaw. Let's throw him a 4-year deal worth $9 million a year. Niners aren't going to touch that because they want to keep him for maybe 2 years max. He does have injury risk, and you protect yourself by giving him a lower contract. So if like Washington, you got Adam Peters there, he can say, hey, man, Jerry Greenlaw, come over here. We got Bobby Wagner, but he's probably done in a year. You can be the alpha linebacker of this team. I think that's where the 49ers would lose out in a battle. But if Robert Saleh can say, hey, look, 2 years, you and Fred Warner, let's run it, try to win a Super Bowl together, give us what you got, I think he'll come back. But it really depends on what teams are going to be bidding for him. Because there's going to be a lot of teams that probably throw him some money. But I think that injury is going to be really what's telling in his market value. Because I think it was important for him to come back this year to show teams like, hey, I can still play when I'm healthy. But he only played one game, and that's a big factor in negotiations.
But, it's also going to probably, it makes the Niners pause, but it may make some of these other teams pause.
Yeah, that's true.
So there's that too. On the hooks, or Danny O is one of the guys saying Greenlaw will never be the same after that injury. He needs to go. All I would say is I don't pull rank on you guys. I really don't. I don't. I do not talk down to my audience. I do not think I know more than you. I do not think I know better than you. But this would be the one time I would say, guys, I'm in that room. I'm in that room. You guys know I'm in that room. I talk to all these guys. Every guy doesn't have equal impact in the room. It's not. There are guys that have no impact at all in the room. It's like they're not even there. And their arrival means nothing and their departure means nothing. You know what I mean? But then there's a handful of guys. And I would say Kittle is one of those guys. Trent Williams is one of those guys. Brock Purdy's one of those guys. Dre Greenlaw is one of those guys. Fred Warner's one of the. There's a few guys. Eric Armstead was one of those guys that do mean more than their stats, and they really are kind of leaders in the room and guys that their presence means a lot. They're going to miss Deebo. I'll give you one right there. Deebo. They're going to miss Deebo. There's no question in my mind they're going to miss Deebo. He was a major factor. He was a tone-setting player. There's bad players, there's good players, there's great players, and then there's tone setters. And you got to have some of these tone setters. These guys that get everybody ready to go. Charles Haley, Ronnie Lott, the Harbaugh era, Dante Whitner, Alex Boone. You got to have some of these guys. On this team, Dre Greenlaw is that guy. He's one of those guys. He says, I'm playing at this level, and who isn't playing at this level? Get the hell out of here. And that's powerful. So I don't talk down to you guys, but I will just say this. I feel like I do know this situation better than the people who haven't been in the room. And I just think that, just trust me when I say this, Dre Greenlaw means a lot in that room. I get it. I get you, Danny O. The injuries, he won't be the same, diminished. I get it. And I'm not even debating you. But this guy's vitally important to their culture and vitally important to the way they play and the violence that they play with. And he's a tone setter. and they're so valuable. So I want to bring them back. This is an interesting comment too. On the hooks is Larry. Don't draft undersized linebackers. We need big players. Linebacker needs to be fast, big, tough, and nasty. Well, I would disagree. If you look at the NFL, the linebackers are now more like strong safeties of the 80s. They're 220. They're 225. The days of Matt Millen and he's 260 and he's got the big freaking neck roll and he looks like an offensive guard. No, those guys don't play. I mean, look at Washington. They went out in the free agent market. Who did they sign? They signed Frankie Louvu. He had a great year. Frankie Louvu's small. What the Niners need is they need big physical tackles that can absorb the bodies so that those offensive linemen cannot climb to the second level and pick off your linebackers. But what you really need, I mean, who's the best linebacker in football right now? I mean, Fred Warner's great. Greenlaw's great. These guys are not the biggest guys. I was going to say, to me, one of my favorite linebackers to watch is JOK for Cleveland. He's like 215 pounds, but he runs like the wind. So this year at linebacker, there's all kinds of dudes in this draft that are undersized. Jeffrey Bassa from Oregon is 225 pounds, but he's 6'1", 225, but he's a great linebacker. Shamar James from Florida, great athlete, 6'1", 220 pounds. He's really, really good, but he's also small. Chandler Martin from Memphis is an amazing player, all-conference player, captain of their team, tackling machine. He's 6 feet. They list him here at 230. He might not even be 230. And there's other guys, I mean, that are small. Eugene Asante from Auburn is a really, really good linebacker who can run and hit. And, you know, what is he? He's 6 feet, 222 pounds. I'm looking at him right now. So, I mean, Chris Paul, they just met with Chris Paul, the Ole Miss linebacker, who's really special. 6'1", 220 pounds. So, I don't know. I mean, even we're at a point in history where the edge rushers, like Jalen Walker, the edge rusher from Georgia, he's 6'2", 245. The edge rushers are more like 240, 250, and the linebackers are more like 220, 215, 220. I mean, we're talking about maybe a lot of people who want to get rid of Greenlaw. We'll get rid of Greenlaw and sign Jamien Sherwood. Well, Jamien Sherwood played safety at Auburn, and he's 214 pounds. And yet he made 18 tackles against Arizona. He made 17 against Miami or whatever it was. I mean, the guy's a really good player. But that's my point. My point is that in today's NFL, like it used to be, the tackles on the offensive line were monster. You know, House Ballard. Now the guards, like the Eagles put Mekhi Becton at guard.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But tackles, you have to have the ability to kick out and get those speedy edge rushers who are 230, 240. And so you got to be able to have movement. The guards are monster now. Guards today are 330 pounds, 350 pounds. I mean, the Eagles guards are just behemoths. So I'm just saying, it just changes over time. Now we're in an era where, man, the big defensive tackles are great. But the linebackers are all undersized guys who can really run. So I don't necessarily agree that you need big linebackers. I just think you need good linebackers who make tons of tackles.
Regardless, yeah. Just guys that can stop the run. If you're big or small, don't matter if you can't stop the run. So yeah, absolutely, you're right.
You gotta be able to stop the run. Yeah. Okay, let's talk a little bit about quarterback for a second. Purdy, according to my buddy who's a real estate agent, is pricing homes and is about ready to close on a home in the Bay Area. That tells me that probably this contract is, you know, he might have enough Toyota money that he could probably buy a house just with that as the collateral. But I'm sure, you know, if he's going to buy a big house somewhere, which I'm sure he probably is, he's probably going to need some of that money coming from the Niners. So I do think this is going to get done. All indications are that it's going to get done. There's not going to be any delays. And Raj, you know, I think my prediction of it gets done before free agency, I'm going to stay with that.
Wow.
Free agency starts March 12th. I would be very shocked if that deal's not done by the time free agency starts. Other people are saying it's going to be late. It's going to be like, you know, June or July or even this summer, late this summer. I don't think so. I think they're going to get it done early. What are you thinking?
You know, honestly, I hope they get it done early. I think Brock's the type of guy that's like, look, man, just don't play around. This is my number. Let's figure it out. And I do think they're going to try to get it done as soon as they can, because he said it. That's what he wants. His goal is to be, in and out. Let's get it done quick. And shout out to him, man, that he's going to be buying a house, man. That's good. That's good to hear. But you do need to have a little bit of money to go put down for a house in the Bay Area. So, yeah, we'll see. I like your prediction that it's going to be by free agency. I really hope so. I could see both. I could see them stretching it out because this is the 49ers, and they have traditionally went and just strung out these contracts. And you still have the George Kittle situation where they're trying to give him a contract extension, where he said, a couple of weeks ago that, he's in contract negotiation mode. So I feel like maybe Kittle's gets done first and it pushes out Brock, but who knows? Maybe they could both get done around free agency time, and it would be a fantastic week for us. It'd be a lot of celebrations. Now, the other thing is this offseason's gone really well so far for the 49ers. It's like they've learned from all their mistakes. They re-signed or they extended Diamond Lenore mid-season, so they didn't even need to worry about that. They got the coaches they wanted. They've been rolling down on schedule. So with the way this offseason's going, I could see it being where they say, hey, look, we got Brock's contract up. We got it taken care of. We got Kittle and no hitches. So I'm optimistic. That's all I'm going to say there.
You and I discussed this earlier tonight on KMBR, but forgive me for bringing it up because a lot of our audience didn't hear that interview. But today, one of the significant announcements was that Andy Dalton re-signed with the Carolina Panthers, 2 years, $8 million. He went there, and him and Bryce Young have a really good relationship, and they feel like they've got quarterback covered. They got the young guy that's learning from a veteran who's willing to share and also can step in and take some pressure off of the young fella from time to time, and we've seen Dalton do that. He's like just good enough to be good enough to win games if you have to lean on him, and just not good enough to really threaten the young quarterback's confidence in any way. But it leads us to the Niner quarterback room. There's Brock and there's Mordecai, and then there's two free agents. Obviously Dobbs is moving on. I think that's pretty clear. I think Brandon Allen could come back, but I think he also could move on. What do you want to do here at quarterback? Because, the one thing, people have said to me a couple times in the last few weeks, Krug, you're so, over your skis about this number 2 quarterback. It doesn't really matter. If your starting quarterback goes down, you're done. I'm like, okay. But I'm looking at the 49ers don't have, if you're Kyle Shanahan and you're John Lynch, it's go time, man. This is year 9 of the regime. You can't lose Brock for a month. And if you lose Brock for like 6 weeks, if you lose your starting quarterback for the year, yeah, you're probably done. But let's just say you lost him for 6 weeks. You can't go 0-6 and miss the playoffs because Brock gets hurt and he missed 6 games. You have to have somebody who can step in and compete. So the questions are, do you want a veteran? There's a lot of options this year in free agency. There are not a lot of options in the draft, but I'll say this, the more I watch the draft and look at these prospects individually, I kind of like Kyle McCord. I kind of like Taylor Elgersma from Laurier in Kansas. I kind of like Riley Leonard. I kind of like Tyler Shugg, who's played 7 years of college ball. I kind of like Quinn Ewers. I kind of like Peyton Thorne. And none of these guys are going on day 1, and none of them probably are going on day 2 either. Maybe Ewers could go on day 2. And they're saying maybe Shugg will go, higher than people think. I actually saw something today that one NFL scout believes that Jackson Dart is going in the top 10, which would be great news for the Niners. Wow. If somehow there's a run on quarterbacks and Jackson Dart goes in the top 10, that's going to push somebody really great, maybe Mason Graham, right into the laps of the Niners. So that's exciting. But what do you think, Raj? I know I just asked you this question not that long ago, but for the audience who didn't get to hear your answer, one, have you changed your mind in the last hour? Or why don't you tell us who you like at quarterback? And I'll say this, everybody, if you're a hardcore Niner fan, I'm debating the veteran versus the real talented, if you can find Brock Purdy, right? If you can find the future starting NFL quarterback that just happens to be on day 3 of the draft. And you know what? Some of these guys are going to make it. I don't know if it's Riley Leonard or Kyle McCord or Tyler Shugg or Taylor Elgersma, but I would be willing to guess that one of those 4 guys becomes a good quarterback. I like them all and a few others. But I also like the idea of the veteran. So I can, I can be convinced to go super cheap and go with a rookie, but I have to, Kyle McCord, I'd have to really meet him and be like, wow, this kid's got it between the ears too. He's not just a good thrower. He's got a great arm, but what kind of, how does he think the position? Who do you want at QB behind Purdy
Yeah.
and within that room with Mordecai?
Yeah, no. So first and foremost, please, if John Lynch is listening, Brandon Allen, please don't bring him. Don't bring that man back. Like, if I see the notification, breaking news, the 49ers have re-signed Brandon Allen, I will lose my shit. I will not be happy. But my answer to this is go get a veteran. I know he's older, but Joe Flacco's a guy that could come in. If there's an injury to Brock Purdy, you could throw him in for a couple weeks. He can manage a few wins. Still got a pretty good arm. He's a pretty solid quarterback. I know he's older, but I feel like he would be a good backup mentor. He knows his role. He's going to hold the clipboard and come in case of emergency. And he's done it pretty well over the last couple of years. So I like Joe Flacco as QB2. This one might not be as popular with the Niner fans because they hated him when he was coming out of the draft. But Mac Jones, Niner backup, I wouldn't hate it. He was a guy that Kyle wanted. He desperately wanted this guy, but you couldn't get him at 3. You could have got him at 12. But you went all in. You took Trey Lance. Maybe Kyle gets a second chance in getting Mac Jones, and he could be his backup. And I think he could win games with the Niners if there's an emergency in terms of managing the game. So my 2 quarterbacks, if the 49ers are looking to get a free agent, probably going to be Joe Flacco and Mac Jones, as crazy as it sounds.
Those are great names. I mean, Flacco's 40. But I think in a lot of ways he might be exactly what the Niners need, exactly what they need. Because if Purdy goes down, now you're not just bringing in a guy with a decent arm. You're really bringing one of the greatest arms in the history of the league. I mean, yes, he's 40, but he had multiple games where he threw for 300 yards last year. So I think Flacco can still do the job, especially if you can do it in a short-term basis. And the other thing, too, it's like you got to ask yourself, if by chance you got into an NFC championship game against the Eagles again, and Brock Purdy again got knocked out of the game, who would you want to have your season riding on? I mean, that's what you really need to think about because that could be the situation. Oh. And so when I think of that, I think, maybe I don't want a rookie. But I really love what I see out of this Kyle McCord. He really throws the hell out of the football. So, I mean, that kid really has impressed me in the last couple weeks, looking at him. And then looking at this kid from Laurier in Canada, Taylor Elgersma, he's 6'6". He's got a pretty good arm, man. I mean, he looks really good. So those guys are intriguing. But I think I love your guys. I mean, Mac Jones would not be popular with Brock, but it would be a popular move. I think overall, I think it would be a good move. I love the Flacco. I guess I would say maybe if you bring in, Justin Fields, Mac Jones, Zach Wilson, Daniel Jones. Now maybe Brock's looking over his shoulder. And I don't know if I want that. The 2 guys that I like the most from the veteran standpoint, I would have said Flacco and Andy Dalton, but now that Dalton's off the market, I liked what I saw late in the year from Drew Lock, and I liked the way Drew Lock played against the Niners when he was in Seattle. Was it 2 years ago?
Yeah.
I think Drew Lock's big. He's got a good arm. He doesn't have a Flacco arm, but he's got a good arm. I would say Flacco or Drew Lock, unless your scouts are just, they come to you and we think Kyle McCord's going to be a Pro Bowl quarterback. Okay. Then maybe, let's move some picks around, see if we can acquire one extra pick in the 3rd or 4th round, and pull the trigger on because if you do, the one thing about the NFL, if Brock Purdy saved the Niners bacon, right? But let's just say for the sake of the conversation that Trey Lance didn't stink. That Trey Lance was really good. And they still drafted Brock Purdy, and he still got in there an opportunity to prove himself and show everybody what he's got. Well, then you would have had a starting quarterback in Trey Lance and another starting quarterback that you could trade. So, you know what? If you do have a conviction on a young quarterback, go trade down, get an extra draft pick, and draft that guy. Because look at what it can do. It can have such a profound impact on the building of your roster. I mean, at this point, the Niners are going to need probably to either hit at a really high rate or they're going to need to draft a quarterback that they can trade for high picks just to get even with Philly, Detroit, Kansas City, Baltimore, Buffalo. Some of these teams are a little bit more talented across the board. I mean, the Niners gave away a lot of picks in that Lance deal. They lost a lot of players in the Hargrave signing. They've thinned out their ranks, quite a bit. I just think that, if you can find a young quarterback that you think's got big time star potential, get an extra pick and draft him. But short of that, give me Flacco or Drew Lock.
Okay. Now, I like this. There's somebody in the comments, I think Key Johnson 25 says, if Brock Purdy is looking over his shoulder for a backup quarterback and he's not the guy, that's a great, that right there. If he's looking over his shoulder, Larry, against some of these quarterbacks they bring in, then
okay. Well, let's talk about it for a second because we just experienced it.
Yeah.
Let's say that Trey were still here.
Okay.
Would Brock be looking over his shoulder at Trey? No, he's worlds better than Trey. But guess what? The rest of the Niner fan base would be looking over their shoulder, and that becomes a distraction. It's not about, let's be honest about this. There were a lot of people that were getting really verbally accusatory and very negative and started taking this in racial directions and all kinds of terrible things because, they were sickened that the idea that Sam Darnold would be ahead of Trey Lance on a summer training camp depth chart. It was like, well, he's one of the Niner guys. He's one of the Cabo clique. He's this, he's that. He's hanging with the boys at at Warrior games courtside, and Trey's just not part of the in crowd. All this garbage that had absolutely no. It wasn't based in anything other than I don't know Jack, and I'm just going to spew. So I just feel like there's always, you can't be naive to what the dialogue is around the team. And the dialogue had gotten when the Niners traded Trey Lance that summer. I can remember it was before the Cowboy game, right?
Yeah,
or before the preseason game. Who was that game against? I forget.
Chargers. Dallas. Well,
no, they traded him to Dallas.
He traded Dallas. Oh, it was right before the Chargers game. Yeah.
And it was like we all wanted to see Trey that night, right? Oh, let's see Trey. Oh, we're not going to see him because he's traded. Yeah. But there were a lot of people that were really getting very aggressive with the 49ers about why they weren't playing Trey and all these things. And it's like now here we fast forward a few more years and we have a lot more examples of both of them playing, and we're like, oh, well, Brock is better than Trey. And now Trey, it wasn't the Niners. Trey's now in Dallas. He can't even beat out Cooper Rush. So it became this very ugly kind of public discourse around the quarterback, and people were choosing sides. If I'm Kyle Shanahan, I don't want any part of that. I don't want any chance of that.
I don't want any drama. That was probably the worst summer covering the 49ers. Oh, my God. I was in the trenches with all the people that were doing, people were on their Trey Lance, 4 of 6, 5 of 7. Oh, he hit the dart. It was insane. I remember that year. It was great. People would
Trey's going to throw the ball down the field, but Brock's going to be the dink and dunk guy who can't. And it's like, what?
People would take their notes. They'd go rush home, get it all, and they'd go, let me tell you why Brock Purdy's not. That was the craziest. And then when Trey got traded, everyone was like, just happened. That was great. There's been drama at quarterback for the last several years, but that one was peak. That was so crazy because I remember you had Darnold, Trey Lance, Brock Purdy. Everybody was losing their mind. It was spreadsheet city that everybody had their notepads out. Crazy.
Yeah, it's just I just think that you got to have somebody who can win games. Like if you may lose Brock for 5 or 6 games, you got to have somebody who can win games. Period. Because you got to make sure that you make the playoffs. I guarantee you, Jed is not going to allow John and Kyle to use quarterback injuries as an excuse for why they didn't win. And you can't win a Super Bowl if you don't go to the playoffs. And so, to me, I got to have that veteran that can win, or I got to have that quarterback that my scouts are like, Kreuger, this guy is going to be a starting quarterback for 10 years in the NFL, and it's the middle of the 4th round. Let's trade our 5th and our 6th and our 7th, and let's get an extra 4th and, trade a play. Maybe we trade Deebo, whatever it is. Trade whatever you need to trade, get that extra 4th round pick, and draft Kyle McCord. And then have a quarterback behind Brock who really can do it so that if Brock goes down, your season's not done. Yeah. So that would be my thought. But at the same time, it's got to be somebody that's a clear second. It can't be like, see, I think if you bring in Mac, and I think Mac would be a good call, but there will be people that are like, Mac's better. If you bring in Fields, there'll be people, Fields is better, Yeah. So you got to, if you bring in Zach Wilson, he has 2 good games and Brock throws 3 picks, and all of a sudden it's like, Zach Wilson's better.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if I want to get that kind of competition, but I want to have somebody that I think is going to do the job if he's not in there. The youngest I would go for would be a Drew Lock, but I like Drew Lock, and I think Drew Lock's got talent. So, I mean, there was a game. Wasn't there a game this year? Let me look it up. Wasn't there a game this year where Drew Lock threw 5 touchdowns?
Did he throw 5 touchdowns in the game this year?
Didn't he play? He played for the Giants, right? Let me double check that. I'm pretty sure.
Let me see. Right.
Drew Lock had 1 game this year that was crazy good.
Wow.
Okay, he played against Indianapolis. He was 17 of 23 for 309 and 4 passing touchdowns and 1 rushing touchdown.
5 tutties, Drew Lock.
Or wait. 5 touchdowns. Wow. He had a rushing touchdown and 4 passing touchdowns. Easily the great. He threw for 309 yards. He completed 74%. I mean, he also completed 70%. He had against Philly. They lost to Philly on January 5th at Philly, and he was 22 of 29 for 138 yards. He had a touchdown. He had a pick, but he completed 76% of his passes against the number 1 defense in pro football at the end of the year this year. So, I'm kind of always about, hey, you're only as good as your last show. You're only as good as your last game. This guy's last game was pretty damn good. I'm just saying, Drew Lock would not, and he's only 28. He's 6'4", 230. Probably cost you nothing. Well,
not a bad backup. Go get him. And he'd be on the sideline rapping. You've seen the clip where he's rapping on the sideline. I like it. He's got the vibes. Bring him in.
Okay, let's quickly talk about the 11th pick. The Niners have the 11th pick. We're post All-Star game circuit, but we're pre-combine. Combine's coming up, I believe, next week in Indy.
Yeah.
What do you think? What's your thought process right now with the 11th pick? I'm looking at a mock draft as we speak, and this is the one I'm looking at. Draft Tech. By the way, if you ever want to go check out a great website, drafttech.com, draftek.com, and they have a mock draft. This is their mock draft. Cam Ward goes 1 to Tennessee. Travis Hunter, he's a corner, not a receiver. He's going 2 to Cleveland. 3rd pick is Shedeur to the Giants, Shedeur Sanders. 4th pick is Kelvin Banks, super blue chip tackle to New England. What a year he had, by the way. 167 pass blocking snaps, 0 sacks allowed, 0 hits allowed, only 1 pressure allowed all season for Kelvin Banks. He's going high. Will Johnson from the corner from Michigan, who barely played this year. People are comparing him to Surtain. Supposedly he's going to Jacksonville at 5. Okay.
Wow.
Then they have Tedoroa McMillan going to the Raiders at 6, the Arizona wide receiver. I will say this, too. Tedoroa McMillan, I think, is going to run a blistering 40. And when people see that he's 6'4", 210, and it's probably more like 6'5", maybe 215, but he runs 4.31, I think people are going to be like, oh, my God, that guy's going to go top 10.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I think he's going to run a great 40. My buddy who trains these guys told me that McMillan is going to run a crazy 40 watch. Wow. So there you go. Wow. Then there's Will Campbell going 7 to the Jets. I think he's a super blue chip offensive lineman.
He's the man.
That, to me, Will Campbell's the no-brainer. If he's there, you take him.
Absolutely.
8, they have Carolina going Abdul Carter. So
smart.
if the Niners wanted Abdul Carter, they could just trade up, to 7 in front of Carolina, and with the Jets. How about Deebo and 11 and the Niners' second round pick for Garrett Wilson and 7?
Sounds good. Let's make it. Oh my God!
Could you
Send it
imagine?
in.
Could you imagine if the Niners get Garrett Wilson and Abdul Carter?
Oh, that'd be crazy.
That would be amazing. So that's 7. That's 8. New Orleans at 9 is taking Mason Graham. Chicago at 10 is taking Ashton Genty, the running back.
Genty.
Ben Johnson, by the way, is the favorite right now for Coach of the Year.
Wow.
And then the Niners at 11 in this one, they have him taking James Pierce from the edge rusher from Tennessee, but they also have Luther Burden on the board. They have Malachi Starks on the board. They have Tyler Warren on the board, very safe pick. Mikael Williams on the board from Georgia. Emeka Egbuka on the board. So that's the first, 16 picks or whatever in the draft. What do you want to do at 11, Raj? What are you thinking?
I mean, if they can't get the blue chip offensive tackle, which I think we all want, I think you just got to go best available talent, man. You take the best player, Mason Graham, if he's there, or, Starks, whoever's the best player available, you got to take him, man. I think also specifically at D lineman, because I think if you can't address the O-line, you got to bolster that defensive line, because that D-line was abysmal last year. So, and you got Salah back, right? You want to, beef up the line, especially for Robert. So I think that if you can get a premium defensive lineman somewhere in this draft at 11, you probably take it. But if there's a blue chipper at tackle, Kelvin Sampson, if he somehow is there, or Will Compton, or Will Campbell, if he's available. Yeah, Will Campbell. If you get one of those two guys, I mean, I don't think they're going to be available. I saw today Daniel Jeremiah said 49ers would take the cornerback from Michigan, which
Will
would be
Johnson,
crazy.
who in this mock was gone, but yeah, he could be there.
He falls to 11. That's a hard pass, man. He's so good. I mean, can you imagine? You'd have Renardo Green, Diamo Lenore, and Will Johnson. I mean,
a dominant number one corner. I'll give you a couple names that I'm thinking. This is how I'm thinking right now. I think Campbell and Banks are the two premier tackles. I think they'll be off the board. But I'm in. The more I watch the Missouri guy, the more I love him. Armand Membu.
Oh yeah, he's
6'4", 330. Raj, this guy never loses balance. He never lunges at anybody. He's got super long arms. I can't wait to see him work out at the combine, because they list him at 6'4", 332. Missouri just gets a few guys that are just freaky, weird athletes. I mean, Alden Smith, Nick Bolton, this guy Membu. I mean, this guy's. I mean, usually you see offensive linemen, they lunge and they're off balance. This guy's never off balance. I mean, it's amazing. So I would have if I'm going offensive line, I'm going Armand Membu. Okay, because I think Banks and Campbell for sure are going to be gone.
They're going to be gone.
But so I would Membu. I definitely would go with. The other idea is trading down a little bit and maybe going for one of the defensive tackles. The guy that there's Walter Nolan. There's Mason Graham. I don't think is going to be there, but the guy that the more I watch now, granted, he wasn't great his entire career, but he was great in the Buckeye game for sure, and that's Kenneth Grant opposite Mason Graham, the gigantic Michigan defensive tackle, who's way better than Mozzie Smith. He's 6'3", he's 340, he runs really, really well. To me, if part of my plan is go get Kenneth Grant and then, have bigger interior guys and go for some fast, smaller linebackers who can run and hit and keep guys like Grant will keep bodies off those guys. So either I'm going Membu, I'm trading back for Kenneth Grant, or I'll tell you the other guy that I really love is Jalen Walker from Georgia. I mean,
he's a dog, yeah.
If you really want speed on defense, this guy's name is Jalen Walker. His name should be speed on defense, because he is the fastest linebacker I've seen in a while. This guy won the Butkus Award. He's a linebacker. I know they list him as a defensive end. He's just a linebacker who's super fast, who can blitz. But he's not a defensive end. He's 6'2", 245. I mean, defensive ends in the NFL are, 6'4", typically, and about 265. You need to be about 260, I would say, to battle offensive tackles who are 310, 320, 330. This guy, if he beats you to the edge, that's how he's going to get to the quarterback. But if he doesn't beat you to the edge, you're going to stonewall him because he's only 245 pounds. But if you play Jalen Walker at linebacker, Raj, oh my God, this guy is so freaking fast. It's one of the most amazing things. I can't wait to see what his workout numbers are going to be. To me, it's Kenneth Grant on the trade back. It's Membu at 11, or it's this kid, Jalen Walker.
He's a monster. Yeah. I also like Walter Nolan. I didn't say defense kid from Ole Miss. He might be there. Best available talent. I mean, again,
he will be there. He'll be there at 11.
Stud tackle. I mean, that might be the move. I mean, I feel like he could be in how Salah had Quentin Williams in his defense. I feel like Walter Nolan could be like the Quentin Williams of this defense. I'd be happy to have him paired up with both.
Yeah, be awesome. Let's hit some supers and bolt. Hadrian Medina says, Larry, I'm with you on going heavy on defense in the draft. What do you think about adding Drew Dahlman at center, Jedrick Wills as left guard, and draft a right tackle in round 3? I love it. I think the Wills thing is genius. Wills was a first-round pick. He's a tackle. You have him at guard here, but he's really a tackle. And yeah, if you could get, because what reason I love Jedrick Wills is exactly what I was talking to Raj about before. He's a 25-year-old free agent. He's a really young free agent who's got a lot of good football ahead of him. And Dahlman, I just think, would be a very solid player. Very solid player. I think they need an upgraded center. I love this idea. I really do. That means that you sign Dahlman, you sign Wills, and then you use your top couple round picks on defense. And then when you get to the third round, I love Anthony Belton, but there's a couple other tackles there, and you pick the best tackle that's there in the third round. I mean, you did that this year with Dom Pooney, and it worked out really well. Now, granted, he's a guard, but I love Anthony Belton, and I'm pretty sure he's going to be there in the third round. He's sick, he's huge. I mean, he's 345 pounds, but I think he'd be fantastic. Yeah. Mitchell and Nesses was listening to Larry on the way home on KMBR. My breakout player is D. Winters, although Renardo Green, which was Raj's breakout player, is a good pick. He says, I was seeing flashes of Greenlaw, Dog, and Winters the last few games. I agree with that, Mitchell and Ness. I think the last few games we started to see Winters fly around and look a little like Greenlaw. That's a good call. It shows that that's what I love about the YouTube. The real fans are here. You know what I mean? Like the most knowledgeable fans are right here. You know what I mean? I mean, don't you think, Raj? I mean, you've been doing this longer than I have. The really super knowledgeable fans are on YouTube. I mean, you can tell. I mean, Mitchell and Ness, I mean, that observation, you don't have that observation unless you really watched.
You got to know ball. And the people the ball knowers are on YouTube. Mitchell and Ness knows ball.
Mitchell and Ness knows ball. Calba Kamiga says, I believe in the Larry draft plan of trading back. Move back to the end of the first and add three additional day 2 picks for a total of 7 picks in the first 3 rounds. You can't possibly screw up all 7 picks. I agree. Here's the one line that just drives me crazy when people say it. The Niners have 11 picks, and I would be like, they need to trade back, get a couple more picks. Look, man, they don't need 13 or 14 rookies. And it's like, you're right. They need 17 rookies. I mean, I did a list today. I'll just give it to you real quick. Here's the list. This is the Niners' needs. They need a number 2 quarterback who they can win with. They need another running back with instincts and power and contact balance. I love Kyle Monangi from Rutgers. They need a wide receiver with sub 4.4 speed. They need an offensive tackle, or they need 2 tight ends because their tight ends behind George are heinously bad. They need a center. They need a right tackle. They need a left guard if Banks leaves in free agency. They need a kicker. They need a defensive tackle with size and athletic ability. They need a rotational defensive lineman who can rush the passer inside and outside. They need a starting edge opposite Bosa. They need 2 off-the-ball linebackers that have speed, instincts, and college production. They need a free safety who can play the deep middle and man or zone, and they need a corner who can play right away. That's a lot. That's a lot of needs. And I would dare anybody to tell me that any of those needs aren't needs.
Yeah.
They need all those guys.
They need
That's a
it
lot of
all.
players.
Jeez, it's a lot.
It's a lot.
No wonder we had 6 wins this year. God.
Seriously. 49er throwback. The NFL Combine's next week. Who's going? The 9 days till free agency. What a great weekend in the Bay Area. All what is that?
All-star MVP Steph Curry.
All-star MVP Steph Curry. Draymond Green would be a great head coach, than a TV analyst. Draymond said it. He's like, hey, man, that was one of the dumbest lines. I'll tell you who's so annoying is that the Candace Parker.
Oh.
Candace Parker thinks she's like James Naismith. She thinks she like invented basketball. She actually said that Draymond Green would not be a good coach when Draymond Green would be an amazing coach.
He's a good coach, actually, yeah.
Draymond Green, and Draymond was like, hey, man, the Warriors already offered me their job, the coaching job when I'm done playing. Yeah, because the Warriors are smart and they know that you're going to be a great coach. Draymond Green would be an epic coach. And she's like, yeah, you wouldn't be a very good coach because you're like me, you're impatient. And Draymond, he didn't want to tell her to shut the hell up or tell her that she was wrong, but he basically told her she was wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, right to her face. And it's like, nothing's worse than when somebody says they can't do something and then they'll group your ass in there with them. I hate that. I hate when people say, nobody can do this. It's like, well, speak for yourself, Jack.
Yeah.
Maybe I can. Don't tell me what I can and can't do. And definitely don't tell us that Draymond Green, who's been a coach on the floor and is one of the great defensive players of his era, who won in college and in the pros and is really probably the reason the Warriors have won the titles they've won in addition to Steph. But they don't win any of those titles without him. I'm confident in saying that. Yeah. Don't say that he can't coach when he's going to be a great coach. She's annoying as hell.
I agree. You going to the Combine next week, Larry? He wants to know.
I'm not going to the Combine. I'll be watching the Combine. I'm going to spring training. So I want to, I've been grinding, man. Here's the thing. I've been grinding all through camp, every day in the regular season. I've been, working for KMBR now and doing the YouTube channel. I mean, I'm grinding 6-7 days a week, all the time, off season, in season. So guess what? My son really likes golf. Not Kev, but my other younger son. And so I want to take him to Arizona and play some Arizona golf and go to a couple Cactus League games and play a couple rounds of golf and get some sun and get out of California and into Arizona for 90 degrees for a week. So yeah, we're gonna I think during some of that Combine, I'll be here for some of it, but I think I'm gonna hit to do a little Arizona spring training.
There you go.
James Foster says I'm taking Jalen Walker or Malachi Starks at 11.
Good picks.
Yeah, seriously, can't go wrong there. Blood Moon says get Warren, the tight end from Penn State, at pick 11. He's elite. F it.
Good.
He is so damn good. I'll just say this: you will never. Here's the one thing too. Raj and I talked about this on KMBR. You're not going to have Deebo, and Ayuk's not going to be back until later in the year. So, but you've already invested a lot in the wide receiver position. This to me seems like the perfect year to invest in the tight end and then just go 12 personnel a lot in the first half of the year. 2 tight ends with Kittle and a guy like Tyler Warren on the other side. Man, you can't go wrong there. And then when Ayuk gets healthy, you got 2 tight end sets that work on the goal line. I think Tyler Warren's one of the safest players in the whole draft, Raj.
He's an instant star. And when Kittle's done in a couple years, here you go. Warren's the next, he just takes over, which, he's a stud, man. I would not be mad if they took. I know there's a lot of other needs: offensive line, defensive tackle, blah 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 blah. Man, he's like a can't miss prospect. He's going to be a guy that's going to be a stud in this league. Hard to pass a guy like that.
You can't. The old saying, you can't go broke making a profit, and that's really about take what the defense gives you. It's more of that kind of a thought, but it's the same philosophy in the draft. If you keep drafting great players, it doesn't matter if you have some redundancy on your roster. It doesn't. Do you think it bothered Jim Harbaugh as he was getting ready to play Super Bowl against his brother that he had kind of redundant linebackers in Bowman and Willis? No. So you have 2 badass guys that can run incredible and make tackles sideline to sideline. Yeah. So what? You work it out. Do what the Lions have done. Do what Brad Holmes has done, which is just keep drafting great players. He got ripped for the Jahmyr Gibbs pick. He got ripped for the Jack Campbell pick. But guess what? He just keeps drafting great players. And if you keep drafting Brian Branch and Penei Sewell and Aiden Hutchinson and all these great players, Jahmyr Gibbs, guess what? You become great. And then you win Super Bowls. Now, they haven't done it, but they're on the verge of doing it, I think, potentially. And I think that's what the Niners ought to do. Simplify. Don't worry about redundancy. Don't worry about duplication. Don't worry about that. Pick great players. Don't worry about the position. Raj, tell people, where they can find you. I know they can, everybody here probably pretty much knows where they can find you, but give yourself a shout out before we bolt for the door.
Yeah, shout out to Raj, our SF 49ers on Instagram, Twitter, everything else in between, TikTok, all that stuff. We all over the place, worldwide, multi-platforms, RSF 49ers, the vibes.
Hit like and subscribe. Thanks to everybody. Thanks to Pig in a Pickle. Thanks to our friends at BetUS. Once again, head over to betus.com right now and check them out. Download the app below. I should say head over to betus.com. Use the promo code YouTube150. You'll get 150% sign-up bonus on your first deposit, 125% sign-up bonus on your next 2 deposits up to $2,000. Again, sign up at betus.com. Use the code YouTube150 to claim your offer. For Raj, I'm Larry. Have a good day, everybody. Good night. We'll see you tomorrow. Peace.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of.